Main Motions Therapy Foundation and how the foundation is hopefully going to be used as an adjunct to therapeutic writing facilities. My name is Dawn Miller. I started Main Motions Therapy Foundation just this past month actually, and my mission is to help children with special needs in city and rural communities by providing therapeutic services utilizing a mobile mechanical horse, and to give children a unique opportunity to reach their therapy goals and achieve greater potential with the benefits of horse riding movements. So my motto is, we're going to be riding to reach potential. What I'm using to do this with is a mechanical horse called the Miracle, developed by Chariot Innovations out of Waco, Texas. 6 years ago, a designer from Baylor University decided that he would like to incorporate therapeutic riding in a mechanical way for kids who can't get to horses. So he designed and built the Miracle. A little bit about me. I've been working in occupational therapy for about 25 years with children with special needs, and I specialized in neurodevelopmental treatment and worked with children specifically with neuromotor deficits and muscular deformities. And I've been working as a pediatric OT in different areas. I worked in school systems, and I began actually working in institutions with a company that developed and designed specialized equipment for children with severe deformities. And then I worked in Tulsa, Oklahoma for a while, and was there for 15 years and developed more skills and training in pediatrics, and moved back up to Kansas, where I'm originally from, and my husband and I and our 3 sons. And then I started working in a private pediatric clinic there for the past 6 years, and I recently started working with the Miracle about 9 months ago and decided I would like to incorporate it into a mobile unit that could be used for kids in rural communities. So I developed Main Motions Therapy Foundation. So my biggest support group is my family. I actually have 4 sons now. We had one more when we came back to Kansas. So I'm a mom of 4 boys. My oldest, Garland, on my right, the right, is here today, and his wife Katie is an equine vet actually at K-State, and she's actually on the brochure. I just found that out. She's pictured using acupuncture. So she works at the equine hospital as a veterinarian there. And then my second son is on the far left, Devin. He is in law enforcement and does multiple physical things. He's pretty active and pretty involved. He lives in Las Vegas. My third son in the back on the left is Grant, and he is in radio broadcasting and is a producer for Intercom radio station out of Mission, Kansas. My youngest and tallest at the back is Dallas, and he's just finished up his associate's degree in Japanese studies and plans to go to Japan and teach education there. And my husband is the center of us all and the most support, so he's my main supporter and holds me up literally and physically. I told you that I work in a private clinic called Possibilities Children's Therapy Group out of Marion, Kansas. I've been there for about the past 6 years. They also have a satellite in Lee Summit, and they work with children of all disabilities and ranges from all ages, mostly occupational therapy and speech therapy, and we have a physical therapist there as well. So I'd like to answer a few questions. Why a horse? Why do we choose a horse for therapy? Why do we use that horse versus other animals for therapy? Why are horses so special for therapy, and how are they beneficial? And then why would a mechanical horse be used as an adjunct to therapeutic riding of a real horse? And the final question I'd like to answer today is, what's so great about a horse? So to define hippotherapy and therapeutic riding, before we get to the definition, we just talked about the past several years that research has been increasingly talking about the benefits of riding horses as it relates to the movement of human walking. And that's where the correlation begins. So in human walking, we have a counter rotation pattern. When we walk, our hips move one direction and our shoulders move the other if we're walking correctly. And it's the counter rotation of the pelvis and the shoulder girdle. So we have that arm swing where one arm moves forward, the opposite leg moves forward, and it's a counter rotation when we walk correctly. The children that I work with and that we often see in therapy or in therapeutic writing don't have that ability to walk in that counter rotation pattern. So they rely on external forces to help them. Either somebody's helping them walk, or they're using a walker, or if they're not able to walk at all, they're in a wheelchair. So therapy is defined as a therapeutic horse riding, and it's a form of evidence-based physical, occupational, and speech therapy practice in which a therapist purposely uses the characteristic gait movement of a horse to provide carefully graded movement and sensory inputs. These inputs engage the sensory, neuromotor, and cognitive systems to promote functional outcomes. So that sounds pretty wordy and technical. Another way to think about it is the motion of walking is similar in humans and horses. Riding a horse has the ability to stimulate and influence the nervous system by replicating the movement of walking. The implication is that riding a horse could potentially help disabled children learn to walk, or at least have a positive influence on how they move. Additional benefits of therapeutic riding is that it helps children with disabilities who have mental and physical limitations by helping them develop self-esteem, strength, posture, and balance. So it's not just the neuromotor, but the overall benefits that the child gets from it. So a child riding a horse for therapeutic reasons was working on all of those things. Their sense of self-esteem and feeling accomplished, their balance, the equilibrium, and their ability to ride and help themselves. So I like to talk about the fact that everybody, to some extent, loves something about a horse. So even if you grow up as a child, you probably were even riding a rocking horse, and if nothing else, at least you have a stick horse. I actually think there's somebody selling those somewhere here at the vending machines or vendors today. So when we talk about a horse, I like to talk about the fact that it was designed to actually ride. If you think about it, a horse has a body development where they are actually perfect for riding. And that space between their shoulders and back end, and it's just perfect for sitting. Whereas other animals were designed you probably would not consider being very comfortable for riding. At least not on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. Okay? So we talked about why a horse is used for therapy. Now let's talk about why a mechanical horse can be an adjunct to the therapeutic riding. Chariot Innovations, can't say their name right, Chariot Innovations out of Waco, who developed the Miracolt, took the movement of the Miracolt and coupled it with the movement of the saddle on a horse walking to get the pattern down right in their design. So that when they came up with the image of both, it was almost identical with the Miracolt and the walking of a horse. So what they came up with is this infinity pattern of movement with the Miracolt. And that pattern of movement uses the infinity movement of the seat to create similar movements achieved in the walking of a gait. And what they found out is there's a figure eight pattern that the seat moves to get all three dimensions and that to equal the exact movement of the horse. And that translates into the pelvis when a person is riding. So the pelvis of the child begins to move in rhythm with the movement of the seat, and the input to the brain and the spinal column allows the nervous system to experience and respond to those movements correctly. So when I decided I wanted one of these, I actually had one at my clinic for the past 9 months. The people who made it brought it up for me to try. It was supposed to be there for a trial basis, and because I kept talking about it and promoting it and wanting to use it, they actually let me keep using it there. So I actually still have it there. But then I decided I want to have one for myself, and that's when I decided to do the foundation. And then, as soon as people started finding out about it, all these people come up with ideas. And this boy is a brother of a patient of mine who actually said, hey, I have to get my Eagle Scout badge. What if I made a horse head and a tail end for your Miracolt that kids can think that they're actually riding a horse, or make it a little more simulated? So I said, sure, go ahead, and this is what he came up with. So when you come to my booth, you can see it, and it is actually pretty cute. Kids like to pet it. It's really soft. The little girls are braiding the tail and the mane, and it just kind of makes it a little more comfortable for kids. And he actually just recently got his approval for his Eagle Scout badge. So when I use the Miracle, I put kids on it based on what I want them to do therapeutically. So this little boy, his name is Kennedy. He comes into the clinic once a week for me to work with him in therapy. When he comes in, he's wheeled in by his grandma with this transport cart because his wheelchair is too big for her to transport him in. So when I get him up out of the chair, and sometimes when he's still in the chair, his legs are crossed, and he cannot uncross them. He has cerebral palsy, and it causes him to cross his legs because his muscle tone is so high. He gets on the horse, and we start with him with his legs in front of the seat, next to the handlebar, because they can't separate any further. But this is him after 5 minutes on the horse. I can get his hips relaxed and moved, and the joint movement of his pelvis allows his hips and legs to straddle the horse correctly so he can ride. After I get him off, he then is able to walk in front of me without his legs crossing. So it benefits that. He also works a little better in sitting balance where he's not crossing his legs. So the Miracle provides a rhythmic movement which stimulates anterior and posterior swinging motions. It encourages the child to achieve proper balance and posture, and it simultaneously allows the child to receive a large spectrum of sensory input and motor input through the nervous system. I encourage every one of my patients to ride a horse whenever possible. So if it's possible and the weather allows and the parents can get them someplace, they like to get to horses, and I always say, the mechanical horse is nice and it's therapeutic. Get to a real horse if you can, because there's nothing beats that. So this little boy's one of my patients now. When he was 3, it was his first time to ride a horse with family friends, and every time he gets to go see them 2 or 3 times a year, he gets on the horse. It's still not quite therapeutic enough for him. So I get him on the Miracle. Here he is at 4 years old. This was last summer, and we work on getting him to shift his weight to the left. So the Miracle is moving when I take this picture, and because it's moving, it has that pattern which allows it to move to the left side. He gets the input to his left side that he doesn't normally walk on very well, and he doesn't use his left hand. He comes in and it's fisted. So I have to place it around the handlebar, and then the movement of the horse puts weight, joint mobility into his wrist to relax his wrist and hand and loosens it up so he can reach and grab. Here he is a couple weeks ago putting his own hand on there now. So he gets on the horse, he puts his own hand on, his horse is named Jack, and he's like, let's go Jack. And he rides and loosens up. I have him on there for about 10 minutes. And we work on movement. While he's on there, he'll reach and pick up rings with his hands and turn and place them somewhere while the horse is moving. You'll see a video of that here pretty soon. So the therapeutic implication of that is that when he is doing something with both hands, his left hand that's stabilizing the device is open and relaxed. And if you just look at him in this photo, you would not recognize that he has difficulty with that hand. So that is after he's ridden the horse. And then recently, just this past week, he reached another goal where he was able to take weight onto his left hand. It is fisted here because it's pretty challenging for him, but it was the first time he was able to take weight into it without me supporting his elbow or holding him up. And he's also on his left hip. So he put that whole floor puzzle together on that side of his body, and after he put it together, he was able to still hold himself up, and that's when I stood up and came and snapped the picture without him falling over. He was very proud of himself. So riding the therapeutic mechanical horse can also influence the correct pattern for walking, for which we hope most of our kids can have some form of doing, and it helps prevent potential imbalances that could lead to hip or spine deformities as a child ages, especially as they go through puberty. We see a lot of changes in their hips and spine when they start to grow really fast. So the therapeutic outcome of riding helps develop independence in all of their functional life skills. When I look at the kids sitting on the mechanical horse, I like to try to think about what they would be like on a real horse and what that sitting balance should be. It should be that the horse's head and shoulders are in line with the hips, pelvis, legs, and trunk and head of the child. So this little girl that I see has cerebral palsy on one side of her body. Her right side is affected. So if you look at her here, the horse is moving, but that was a central picture because you can tell by the handlebars. She's still a little off to the left. She's not quite centered. So we work on things that will get her to increase her movement to the center and get that right side elongated and elevated. So we do a lot of activities. And she also likes to challenge herself. So when she's working on her balance, she's like, I can ride this thing on my knees. Mm-hmm. So this is on a pretty high speed and she gets up on her knees, but she's also, because she's challenged, you can see that she's shifted back to her left side where she's stronger and her right hand is fisted. So as I challenge her higher, I see where she's still asymmetrical. So when she's working, here's an example of what an activity would be like with her. We want her using that right hand. She's telling me it's too high. It's not too high. So we work on things like this repetitively to get her nervous system to respond correctly and balance her out on the right side. Another thing I do therapeutically is I run a Constraint Camp. So I have kids come to camp and I put a constraint device on their hand so that brace is on his good hand. And they come to camp for 2 weeks. They wear the brace 24/7 for 2 weeks, and it forces them to use their affected hand more. And the theory and actually the outcome, that the research has proven that it creates new neural pathways in the brain for them to use their affected hand in a better way. So while he's on this, he can't use that good hand, but his left hand is being placed on there by the therapist, and he's being encouraged to use that other hand to hold on. This is the little girl wanted to have her picture taken with the horse head and tail, so you can see the size of it. She's actually 14 now, and she has a type of cerebral palsy where her movements are fluctuating, and she has trouble walking and her balance. She's easily thrown off balance. She has trouble using her hands together. And she has a horse at home. They live in the country, and her sister and her both have a horse. They were riding last spring. Her horse turned suddenly and started moving faster. She wasn't prepared for it, so she fell off. She didn't get back on the whole horse until just last week. She didn't get back. She rode it with her sister leading, and she's still doing that, but she's back on her horse now that the weather's warm. So what we do in therapy is we work on her balance and control of her trunk, and then I will stop and start the miracle unexpectedly. And I also put her on a swing, and she's on a platform swing on her hands and knees, and I'll tell her, don't let me knock you off. And I will bump it, or I'll stop it or start it, and she has to work on her reflexes. So that's all in preparation for her to be able to ride her horse more effectively and be comfortable and safe and feel less fearful. This is a blind girl that is 17, was 17 at the time that I worked with her. Her mom brought her in and said, what can you do to help her? She can't walk across the street without veering into traffic by herself. She wants to live independently. She uses a cane, and she tries to walk across the street, but she can't walk straight. She keeps veering to the side. So he said, bring her in, we'll try and see. So I had her ride the miracle without holding with her hands. I wanted to see what her trunk would do, and I wanted her to loosen up. So I decided it would be important to know what effect it would have. So I took a before video of her walking. So she chose not to use her cane. The line I drew with chalk is me about the distance across the street, out behind our therapy clinic. I just gave her an audio. Okay, walk to me.
I'm down here.
She started walking, and this is what she does. She would have been in traffic. Okay? So this is after 30 minutes on the miracle. The same day. It's raining a little bit, so it's a little wet. Go ahead. Okay, so what happened was I went back and looked at those videos. She was not using her upper body when she walked. She was just walking. Her upper body stayed stiff. So wherever her hips were going is where her body was going, and she was just stiff as a board. After she was the miracle, her body was able to do the counter rotation. She walked in a straight line and was able to get across. So she's been back a few more times to ride, and Mom was wanting to get a miracle, but she's in high school and she's planning to go to college. She does speeches and debates, and she's just very active, and she's like, I don't have time. So walking across the street, when it becomes more important to her, when she's an adult, she'll probably come to me and say, I want to get one of these, or I want to ride more often. So hopefully we've talked a little bit about why choosing a horse for therapy, and you can understand the benefits of using a miracle as an adjunct to therapeutic riding. Okay? So the last question is, what's so great about a horse? Well, I would like to ask you guys, what's so great about a horse? What do you think is a great thing that you think about when you think about a horse?
The sense of freedom when you're on them.
Yes, that's
the
good.
Relationship.
Emotional connection.
Emotional connection, yeah. Very good. You guys have any questions, any input? What's so great about a horse?
Their beauty.
Their beauty of it. Yep. And they're just, I don't know, when I am around horses, I even like the smell of them. I think there's a certain smell that you know when you're around a horse. I like the smell of leather too. So being next to a saddle vendor at my booth brings back positive memories of when I was a child and riding. And I'd like to just leave with this one final thing, that there's also something pretty great about a horse when we think about it here on earth. But there's going to be a time, one day, when there will be a white horse whose rider is faithful and true, King of kings and Lord of lords, and he will appear on a horse.
That's beautiful.
So I think it's kind of special too. That's also a very good thing about a horse. And not only that, but the armies of heaven who are following him will also be riding on horses of their own. So there will be, in Revelation talks about us riding horses even in heaven. I think that's a pretty good thing too.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the conclusion of my presentation on my main motions therapy foundation and why we are ready to reach potential. So I hope to see you all at the booth, and I know you can come by again if you want to and visit us. And do you have any questions?
That's good.